Hey, this is Alexander Evans, the host of the Relationship Lab, where we thrive to make deeper connections with those you live with, work with, and play with. Hey, welcome to the Relationship Lab, the podcast where we explore deeper connections that make relationships thrive. I'm your host, Alexander Evans, and today we're going to thrive into the most important yet often misunderstood aspects of human connections. It is intimacy. So let me say it this way. What does it really mean to have healthy relationships with intimacy? How do we build and maintain it, navigate it, and the challenges that come with it? And I'm bubbling inside, y'all. This is real. And we have the lovely Brittany Broaddus, who have accommodated me and tolerate me to talk about the areas of expertise that she had. Hey, Brittany, do us a favor. Introduce who you are.
Absolutely. First and foremost, thank you for having me. Yeah. I appreciate the opportunity to sit on this couch with you. I am Brittany Broaddus-Smith, the #1 Christian sexologist and your favorite girlfriend. I am, as I said, a Christian sexologist. I work to bridge the gap between the science and scripture of human sexuality while keeping it real, raw, and righteous. That's my tagline, but really at the heart of it, I want people, believers in particular, to understand that God created sex as a gift, intimacy as a way that we connect. And we were created for community. We were created in community when he said, let us, make man. And we suffer the most in our isolation and transactional relationships. And orgasms are dropping by the hundreds of thousands. And and marriages are ending at an alarming rate, even in the kingdom. So my work is to just bring us back to one another. And with your topic of today, with intimacy, is moving us to a place educationally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, where we understand and value what it means to be seen, heard, valued, and understood. And that's what intimacy is.
Really, you expounded on it. And you kind of touched on it there. What triggered you, or I shouldn't even say triggered you,
right?
What compelled you to say, you know what, I want to tackle this because we use it to market everything. Yeah. And this is the third rail. Yeah. I'm just letting you know, this is third. That's where the juice is, but that's when you step on it, you kill yourself. What compelled you to say, hey, I want to be this Christian sexologist and talk about intimacy in a different way. And in a way that elevates the thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Honest to God, the Lord. Like I was going to be a lawyer. Okay. I went to undergrad to political science was my major. I was going to do that, then go to law school, and I had it all planned out. Political science bored me to tears. Then I switched to psychology, still with the plan of learning people so that I could be the next Johnny Cochran. That was in my head. But slowly but surely, a series of events. Actually, I went to the Shaka Fatah's conference on higher education. I learned about the master's in social work program. And then it transitioned like, okay, I can do therapy. Then I went to Temple for my grad school, and it was like, oh, I think I like couples work. And then I got married. I got married to a deacon who was 10 years older than me. Okay. And a lot of when in the wives circles, there were a lot of conversations about relationships, about marriage, about sex, that I was just like, where y'all getting this from? Because I'm reading the Bible, and I don't have these same hangups. And then I taught, and then I went to another master program at Widener to get my master's in human sexuality. And my pastor at the time was like, if you're gonna be leaving out, because it met on Sundays, some Sundays, and he was like, well, if you're gonna be leaving the house, you need to bring something back into the house. So he had me teach a Sunday school it was a joint singles and married Sunday school called Sex and Salvation. Oh. And, we did like base level stuff, like love languages, really like God's heart for sex and intimacy, trying to find a way that didn't bore the married folk who was having sex to tears, but also didn't, wake love before it's time for the singles. And I was like, just figuring out what God meant for this whole thing overall. And after the lesson was over, one of the elders came up to me and was like, baby girl, you did good. But next time, can we do this in the fellowship hall? I don't know about this whole thing in the pulpit type of thing, right? Wow. And if ever I heard the audible voice of God, it was that moment. And he said, this is it, and this is why. Because up until that point, I was going to do therapy, sex therapy for Christians in the cloak of anonymity, in private. But he was like, nah, I need you, this is how you're going to go ye therefore. This is going to be your Matthew 28. So to your question, there was never a world where I decided I wanted to be a Christian sexologist. Like I didn't even know that was a thing. Still to this day, I'm justifying being a Christian sexologist, right? People don't even know what a sexologist is or that sexology is a genuine field, let alone throw Christian in front of it. So it was like, when we talk about call, talk about purpose, you know, those type of things. It was like God himself said, yeah, that lawyer thing was cute, but this is what you're going to do.
Oh, you're doing some litigation now.
Exactly.
You taking people to court now.
Okay, there's some cross-examinations happening. Okay.
You're like, may I approach the bench?
Certainly.
So, I would like to, oh man, this is juicy. I got like 80 things in my head. I got to slow down, right? No, you're cool in the game. So, if you was to expound and delineate between intimacy and sex, what would be your perspective on those things?
Sex is a behavior. Intimacy is an experience. And intimacy is the experience that you should have while you are having sex, right? And folks are, unfortunately, I speak from the Christian vantage point, they conflate the two. And it started because people just don't want to name things. People don't like saying sex for whatever modesty, chastity feels like saying sex is salacious in some way. So we start saying, oh, we're being intimate, or, we're lacking intimacy and those type of things, when it really means they're not having enough. They're not having enough sex. So sex in, whatever its capacity is the behavior of the thing, and intimacy is the experience that that comes from it and really drives you to want to have more of it. Yeah.
So, I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm glad I have, this perspective.
Yeah.
There's a thing, physical touch, right? And I remember one time the young lady touched Jesus, and he said, "Who touched me?" And Peter said, "Well, man, there's a lot of people out here."
You was there? You remember?
Somewhat.
I was just saying, I want to be clear. I'm like, whoa.
So
it's giving Methuselah. It's giving Methuselah. I'm just saying. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, we cool in the game. So talk about physical touch, and let me frame it this way.
Yep.
There are times like holding hands is a physical touch, right? And then I want you to go between that. If a woman at times touch a man, right, or pat him on the shoulder, right, and then if a man touch a woman without permission, right, in the same gesture, why do you think one is good for the goose but not the gander? Yeah,
it's a safety issue.
Okay.
Men's touch has not always been safe.
Okay.
And there are many men, and I would even venture to say most men, who mean well, who intend well, but there have been enough men that did not. And men are, when it comes to touch, or really many things, men just move around through life, just doing, expecting, giving. That's part of the male privilege. And so there's a possessiveness that is sometimes felt from a man's touch that is not there from a woman's touch. And in the same way, when men touch, it is assumed that they want something physical in return. Whereas when women touch, they're wanting to connect. It's a bid for emotional connection. And so when there's a touch between people who don't have a relationship, like, in the club or, and, restaurant, those type of things, like it shouldn't be, it's in the grand scheme of things. Like if you don't know me and you walk past me and like, oh, put your hand on small of my back, like, oh, excuse me, that shouldn't be a problem. You don't mean anything by it, but you don't know me to touch me in that way. And if the small of my back is an intimate place for, lack of a better word, for me, then I'm going to make meaning of that touch. And that's exactly what happens when anything that's good for the goose is not good for the gander. It's because we make meaning of language, we make meaning of touch. And there are a lot of external things put on a man's touch, particularly when there is no relationship, that is not necessarily there. The threat is not necessarily there when a woman does it.
So, and is it because of the physicality component? You think that plays a role in that?
I think it's just history. I think that history says that men take.
Okay.
And so you're claiming access to my body by putting your hands on me. Even the most, innocent or perceived innocent but that's the thing. Innocent is a meaning, and that you don't get to decide what is innocent for me. And then we also don't understand how far reaching consent is.
Yeah.
And so like we think it's, unnatural to say, you mind if I put my hand right here on your shoulder? No, we just walk up to like, what's up? What's up, brother? And then we noticed with like COVID, right? Yeah. We started taking that extra beat to ask, can I hug? Are you okay if I'm sitting right here? Like, you want me to move over? Before we just walk through the world, just taking up space.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, even well-meaning male privilege necessitates that you take up space. And so, with women, it's not the same. But in the same way, when a woman touches a man, the reaction is like, oh, you're trying to get my attention. You want something from me. It's, there's a lot of meaning making. And the problem comes in with the meaning you made of it doesn't match the meaning I made of it. And we don't know each other. And, that's why we see TikToks go viral about stuff that we're arguing in the comments, like, that wasn't even that deep. And it's like, it's extremely deep. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's interesting because I got teased a lot that I was conscious of how I approach women. And I wish to hug them. Yeah. You can drive a boat between us. Right. Right. And then some women was church hug. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I do. Right. If he said, nobody wants you. Right. I said, no, I don't want this to be misinterpreted.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Because you don't know where people are when you hug them. Right. That they may not have been hugged by a man in a long time. Yep. Right. And then, like you say, people are interpreting things without any clarity. Yep. Right. So one of the things, and you brought up this physical touch, that physical touch in a relationship is critical. Yeah. Like cuddling and holding hands. How can you help men understand how essential that is for women as a place of comfort, as a place of vulnerability, right? And how it's a thing of meaning, right? Right.
I think it would be important to note that it's not as generalizable as important to women, but for the man to understand, to seek to be curious if it is important to his woman. Okay. Right. And to your point, like physical touch as a love language is often reduced to, I like a lot of sex. I feel better when I have sex. I want to connect through sex, which that may be part of it, but it's not the sum total of it. Because in reality, people whose love language is physical touch, if they are only touched in relation to sexual expression or sexual gratification, then they feel rejected. They don't feel welcome. They don't feel loved. It's actually counterproductive if the only time you come say something to me, the only time you want to sit next to me, the only time you want to cuddle is when you want something, right? And that's male and female alike, even though men aren't often given permission to say, I want to cuddle. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that it's important to just consider as a partner, when they're making a bid for physical intimacy, being curious to know if this is strictly, I want to bid for physical intimacy and let that be the conduit for our emotional connection, or if I am open to or desiring of sexual intimacy to follow. I know a lot of wives, since we're talking about women, who won't even, reach out or touch or, lay on or, sit on their husband's lap or lay on his chest, all the things that men like, I like my wife lay on my chest. Yeah. They don't do those things or make the initiation to do those things because it's like, I don't really feel like having sex right now. And I know if I do this, he's going to respond this way. If I get in the bed comfortable, he's going to want to do something. So that's why they're in, the 3-piece suit to go to bed, because they're concerned that now I'm going to be consumed sexually. And that kind of removes the delight and the joy from both of those intimacies, physical and sexual intimacy, when the only type of outreach or connection is you're not really doing it. You didn't really just want to cuddle me because you miss being in my arms or miss me in your arms. You're doing it because you want something. It goes back to that transactional piece of it. So what I would offer to a husband or a wife or a partner who had the partner who is desirous of that just strictly physical connection, is to be moved from a place of curiosity and figure out, what does the time when we are just holding each other mean? What are the times when we're holding hands, mean? What does it look like to, when you walk past me and playfully smack my butt while I'm cooking, right? Yeah. But if you do it, then I'm dreading the next 2.5 hours, because like by the time I go upstairs, now you're gonna want to go ahead. You know what I mean? Just from a place of curiosity.
So it's interesting that you say that, and it's how do you help men calibrate that component, right? Right. Because those things are important, and like different types of physical, right? So we like all these things, we have put them in narrow constructs. Yep. Right. To be intimacy is to have sex, which we know that's not the case. Yeah. To be physical is to have sex, which we know that's not the case, right? It's really educating people on, physical touch is, I touch your face, right. With no intent of letting that lead to something that I desire, as opposed to what it means to you.
Certainly. And also recognizing that as humans, our desire for physical touch is innate. There's this concept called touch hunger. Where we are skin hunger or touch hunger, where from birth we desire to be touched. We feel deprived when we lack touch. That's why people are literally losing their mind. We're losing their minds during COVID. That's why you can have somebody in gym pop in jail for 40 years and be, as much as possible a regular functioning human. They do 2 weeks in solitaire and they're losing their mind, because we're not designed for isolation in the way the world is set up. And when we were born, people hug us because we're cute little babies. When we can't fend for ourselves, our parents dress us and do all the things. But as we become more self-sufficient, our touch, the dependency touch that we can depend on, gets less and less, unless it is sexual. And so when we recognize that we can get our physical touch needs met in a way that is not all consuming from our partner, then that also lessens the burden on the relationship. Like, there's nothing that'll match being in my man's arms, right? You know what I mean? And that's why, and this is a side conversation, but that's why the fight about men being mad about sex toys is stupid, because there's no way that a rose is going to compete with a real life, living, breathing 6'5" chocolate 250. Be it unto me, Lord. You know what I mean? It's just, there's no competition. But I think that there's this idea that everything that we need in life intimately has to come from our partner. And that pressure to be somebody's end all be all is suffocating. Yeah. And then and also the pressure that I only can look to you for all of these things is also stressful and reductive, when in reality, like, you only look to me for sex because I beat you up. But there's so many other types of intimacy that this big, wonderful community, we talk about a village all the time, but we don't never let our village function for us outside of watching our kids.
It's, to piggyback on it, it's funny. You know how people, it's these sayings. Yeah. I can't live without you. I always tell people, listen, I can live without you. Right. It may be difficult, but I can. Right.
And I mean, I want to, but I'm sure we'll figure it out.
And one of the things that you tell them, being all encompassing to a person, making that person your everything, is unhealthy. Yes. Right. So so here's a question. So we're going to talk about intimacy with self. Yep. Right. How would you help people develop that aspect, a healthy perspective of intimacy from an internal perspective? Right.
Well, first, there has to be some self-reflection and really realization of who you actually are. What do you actually need? The way I define intimacy that I got from a colleague of mine, sexologist Shamira, is to be seen, heard, valued, and understood. And so you have to first just define what that looks like. So if you are fully seen, what does that mean? If you are fully heard, what would I hear? If I'm hearing you, what would I, hear? Right? If I'm valuing you, what does that look like lived out? And to understand you, what does that look like lived out? And how do you respond to yourself in that way? So if being seen means recognizing, your value in certain places, do you celebrate yourself? Or do you wait for someone else to do it? Are you proud of your accomplishments, or is it a checklist of things? Okay, now we're on to the next. Are you hiding all the mirrors in your house when you look at yourself, naked? Are you celebrating? Are you speaking good words over yourself? All of the things that we have outsourced for others to do, particularly our romantic partners to do. In what ways do you do that for yourself? If you like flowers because you love pretty things, you love the way they smell, you love the way they look on your dresser, do you buy yourself flowers? Or does it take away from it because it wasn't bought from somebody else? And then the question is, do you like flowers, or do you just like to say that somebody bought you flowers? Right? And so being able to have that self-reflection piece to figure what am I even looking for? What do I even need? What do I even desire? What do I even want? And then what are ways that I can show up for myself in that way? Because the reality is, what you do one way, you'll do every way. How you are in one place, you'll be everywhere, right? My mom used to say, God rest her soul, wherever you go, there you are.
There you go where you go.
And so if you don't keep promises to yourself, if you say one thing but do something else, if you pretend and gaslight your own self out of the feelings that you have, under the right circumstances, you will do that to another partner. And it's a little more nuanced than this, but reality of it is, if we really look at some of our failed relationships and where we fumbled, we fumble ourselves in the exact same way.
Yeah, it's interesting, how can you be truly intimate with others when you're not truly intimate with yourself? How can you fully love others when you haven't taken the time to love yourself?
And as a believer, there's a step before that. Because when I look at intimacy in that layered way, as you've been talking about, there's intimacy with God that you have to develop first. Then the internal intimacy, then your familial and platonic circle, then romance. We've thrown it all, we've got this whole order all jacked up. And again, as we talked about before we started, that's the enemy's plan. It was always his plan to have us at odds with one another. Genesis 3, your desire will be for your husband and he will rule over you. That's not like he's going to always be in charge. It's going to be, you're going to want to be on top. And it's going to be like this. We're going to bump heads forever and a day. So that is why intimacy, and really, as I say, a sexually excellent marriage bed, it wages war against the enemy, because he wants to keep us, he wants to expound on that seed that he planted when he caused Eve to deceive. He deceived Eve, which drew Adam into disobedience. And then that caused a fracture between them and God, and them and one another, because now they're kicked out of Eden. And even with, the grace that they weren't forced to stay in that, sinful state. But now we have to spend the rest of our lives together. Like, look at what you did. Right? Like, so all of the things we wrestle with, forgiveness, functioning in our roles, all of those things started from the very beginning. And so when we think about perversion, which is a word that is often tossed around when it comes to, believers, people, sex, right? The perversion is that he convinced you that it wasn't that deep. And even from the beginning, when he said, did God really say that? That is the question when it comes to sex that we battle with. We have been battling with since the beginning of time. Did God really say that? And every denomination, every group, every gender feels like they have the market cornered on what this definition is supposed to mean and what he actually said. And what we realize is we define things in and as much that it keeps us just on the other side of it.
It's and you heard this phrase, into me, right? Intimacy, right? So it's interesting that we have taken something, the physiological component and aesthetics of who we are. And looking at beauty, like you say, in a perverted way. Like, I can admire you for your aesthetics. Right. I can admire you for all these things, but taking that and then throwing it to something that it's not. One of the questions I'm really curious about is, how did they take something so natural that everybody, I always say, every human got two natural desires, hunger and sex. Right. How you create appetites, that's a talk for a different day. But how did they take something so natural, so pure, so genuine, and cause all this topsy-turvy? How has culture, I'm gonna just say culture, all aspects of culture, and some of your as you venture out, what are some of those things that as soon as you bring the word up, right, intimacy, and then you put sex, and what's people natural, I don't even want to say natural, gut reaction?
Right. Well, with my audience in particular, it's difficult, as a Christian sexologist, it's difficult to parcel out what parts of this is godly, right? And a lot of the, I guess, not necessarily aversion, but like, if I get any pushback, is if I'm supposed to be talking about this, first and foremost as a woman and guy, secondly as someone who's single. Right? There's not really a collective thought that sex is godly. There's this idea that collectively that we see, that may not necessarily be spoken, but in behavior, that of all the things that God is okay with, sex is one of those things that he just turns his back on. Like if it were up to him, it wouldn't really go down, but I'm gonna just turn my back, y'all do your thing. Like we can't see God in it. Like when the idea of me talking about penises and dildos and all that in the sanctuary, just like when my first Sunday school, like why are we talking about this in the sanctuary? We have made areas of God so sacred, which is, honorable, right? But we are picking and choosing what belongs in the sacred space. And is there anything more sacred than the first commandment that God gave Adam and Eve as husband and wife? And that was to be fruitful and multiply, right? We understand what fruitful looks like in the earth and, and the job that he assigned to them. But sexuality is the way we multiply. Sexuality is the way that he decided in his sovereignty to continue his greatest creation. When he saw all that he had made and said that it was very good, that means the functions of our body, like the clitoris isn't a technological marvel. The clitoris was on Eve when she got here, Which means pleasure was there but pleasure was on earth before sin was.
No doubt.
Right? Yeah. And so to your question, the issue is we don't realize that this is not only a good thing, but it is also a God thing. And because we are unsure, and as humans, we've made an idol out of certainty. So in order for me to be certain, I have to find the definition that makes sense for me. I have to find a definition that fits my lived experience.
How can we help the audience, think about building the capacity for emotional intimacy? Yeah. Because and how to calibrate.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Because there's definitely a responsibility. Because the word I want to use is vulnerability. Right. You have to be willing to be vulnerable, but there's a responsibility to that. Right. If you're raised in Black households, you've heard that what happens in this house stays in this house. Yeah. And I know for me personally, there was a season where I overcorrected. I was so sick of living in secrets and living in secret and doing things, all those things that I was just like, I'm going to be an open book. There's a certain part of that needs to be the case in order for me to do the work that I do. Like I have to give my testimony in order to, validate what I do. And, the people are won by what? The blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. So there's a part of my life that I willingly and freely share for his glory. But I was so against being bound like how I was as a kid that I met you day one. When I first met my ex-husband, we had been talking on the phone for 2 weeks, never met in person. When we finally met in person, I came downstairs in a scarf, a wife beater, and some biker shorts, sat down next to him on a couch like this, and I said, before we go any further, I just want to let you know, I love the Lord with all my heart, but I have a filthy mouth and I struggle with fornication. What you want to do with that? He was like, right. And so while that was my truth, it was so irresponsible for me to say it like that, to present it like that. But what that was the fear and the shame that I was walking in. I wanted to push him away. Like I felt like he would not accept me because he was a good deacon. And he's not going to accept a cussing, hunching sailor. No, he wants a good girl that I am not, right? And I wanted him to prove what I thought about myself. And we begin to punish people for what we think about our own self. And so we have to have a responsible vulnerability, be comfortable with responsible vulnerability. We need to be able to name things as they are, because as a society, we don't do that well, right? We call things everything but what they are, right? And then you have to get to the place where you're willing to take the risk, because intimacy is risky. You could get hurt. This world is a poop show, but you also could be seen, valued, heard, and understood.
I know we wrap it up, and I want to tag this because you got a hat on. And we hit a couple of them, right? We hit the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual components that you talked about. But that intellectual, messing with her mind, telling her she's fine, buying her some wine. Just if you can cat, and we gonna do it part 2, y'all. Yeah. But if you can cat, that whole intimacy, intellectual, that whole component, just give people a snapshot of what that looks like. Because we talked about it off camera, but I'd love for people to get a part of that.
Intellectual intimacy is the safety to ideate, to dream, to imagine, to image a world where I am different than what I am right now, and you being willing to walk alongside me as I cast vision for what our life and my life can look like differently. So in intellectual intimacy, my dreams, my business plans, my thoughts on matters of our home are safe to to land. I can agree and disagree in the same amount of safety, but also this sexy word has come, people say I'm a sapiosexual. Really what you're saying is I want to matter. Yeah. And when you listen to someone and you actually take in what they're saying, you mirror back to them what you heard, you offer additional ways of thinking, that means you care about what they're talking about. And so to stimulate my mind means to prove to me that I matter to you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey, brothers, I'm telling you, men, words matter. I'm telling you. I don't want to say make love to a mind. That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a different conversation.
But I'm saying, talk to her.
Okay, hey. Especially during. Okay? Yeah. Say the things, huh?
Hey, once again.
Give the verbal report card. Am I doing right?
Hey.
Am I being a good girl? That's okay. Different conversation for a different day. Sorry.
Hey, listen.
Praise the Lord. Y'all in marriage. Hallelujah.
Listen, she coming back, right? Because I even tap into this. Hey, we appreciate you once again joining us from the Relationship Lab, where relationships matter. But more important, the relationship matters with yourself first, and then those you work with, live with, and socialize with. So we just thank you once again for tuning in, and we'll be back with a new episode the next time.